about to walk into a bathroom. It's a luxury bathroom in a home that is just about complete. And what we run into here, not unusual, is issues with the workmanship. And specifically in this video, we're going to look at the painting quality. So we run into challenges like this on virtually every new home we help buyers purchase. And the question becomes, what is acceptable, what's not acceptable in new construction. And so we're just going to take a few minutes to look at the different types of issues that we run into with paint and why it can be a little sticky and why it's something you want to pay attention to. You as a buyer are really responsible for looking at this. The builder's salespeople will not help you with this. The builder's foreman or whoever they have do your walkthrough, typically they will flag some obvious issues, but they're not going to be looking at it as critically as you should be when you're purchasing a home. So let's just start. And we have like I said, this kind of a luxury bathroom. We have double sinks, the separate toilet room, a wet room area with a shower and a fancy tub. And there are lots of different lights here. And the different lighting is one of the things that makes the paint finish critical, because you will see some paint defects with some lights on, and you won't see those same defects with other lights on. The lighting is really critical, and that's one reason why it's absolutely critical that painters have good lighting available when they are painting homes. So we're going to just kind of start here, and the first, just as a background, our trim here is finished in a glossy type paint, and when we look at it with the lights on, you'll start to see some of that. So that's glossy, and part of the reason that is because we want that to be very smooth when you're walking by it and potentially touching it as you're opening and closing doors and such during the day. So that's a different type of paint. In this case, it's actually the same shade, but that is a gloss or semi-gloss, and the walls are a flat or a satin finish. All right, and so here as we walk in, we're gonna flip a light on here and see what we see in terms of the shadows and the other. We can look at over here, you can actually see a rough area there. And that is very rough when I rub my fingers over it. And this, to me, is totally unacceptable in terms of the trim here is smooth because you're going to be touching this, at different days when you flip the light switches and such. And so this, you can actually see the roughness there with the lights on in this particular situation. Now, if I turn that light off, it's not quite as apparent. But then with, let's see if we can do a different combination. Oh, there, you can see it pretty well too. Now, in terms of the standards that you use when you're buying new construction, that's kind of a topic for a different video. But fundamentally, this rough finish here on a trim piece just is totally unacceptable to us. Now down here, actually it's just more of that. So more of that roughness there. Now I'm personally not as picky at the top of the door. I still want to see that smooth, and here with this light on, you can see how that's reflective. The wall is not reflective. That's part of that being the gloss or semi-gloss finish. But as a inspection issue, I'm okay with that not being perfect. Don't tell the builders that, but this, where you are touching it, absolutely needs to be smooth. So that fundamentally is just totally unacceptable. Now down here at the base there, I'm going to see if we can find some lighting that'll show that. Yeah, see, it's virtually invisible with that lighting, which is just the natural light in the afternoon. I'm kind of impacting the shadow a little bit. Can you see that? Yeah, now you can see that. So we have a divot in the wood trim there, but we also have, I believe the technical term in painting lingo is a goober. So not sure what that was, if it was a dust on the roller or something, but that's not right. That really needs to be out of here. And here we have another one right there. So we will expect those to be corrected. Now, when you're dealing with competent builders, they usually won't give you much argument on stuff like this because it really isn't that difficult for the painters to correct. But you have to get them in the mood to correct stuff. And that's why you want to be credible. You don't want to be too extreme on your request. But you also kind of need to be firm on the more significant issue. Now right here, not as obvious, but right there, there's a location where we're actually seeing the primer through the finished coat. So like many, new construction projects, this drywall has a primer coat and a finish coat. And that's what our, typical standard in our market is for finish. With this particular light, that defect is visible, like 5-6 feet away. There's another defect here. I'm gonna need to try different lighting here. The thing with the builders is they want to argue that you can't be too critical because with normal lighting you don't see many paint defects, especially since that wall is flat paint. But the thing is, especially in a luxury bathroom like this, there are so many different lights that with some lighting that's going to be pretty obvious. And the lighting I have right now isn't showing it up. And same with this one. But as we, oh, actually it is. It's right there, isn't it? See right there. Let's see what our different light sets are. So this is one of those things where when you're being critical to try and identify, that light, it totally is invisible. There it's a little bit more obvious. You want to be credible, not ask for everything to be absolutely perfect. Buying a house is not like buying a car where our expectation literally is perfect. When you're buying a car, brand new car, it really should be virtually perfect in terms of the paint finishes and such. You can't expect that when you're buying brand new homes, but it is, you want to be reasonable. Right there we have another area where the paint never covered up the primer. And as I'm standing here, it's much more obvious to me with a naked eye than it is with a camera, even with this particular set of lighting. But on the video, you can definitely still see it there. There's just a little round patch there. And then up here, more of the same. I'm not sure if they just, that could be just damage from when they installed the cabinet. In any case, that should be corrected. Not sure what the specific cause of that is, but that there should be corrected. Now, going into the toilet room here, we probably have some more of those. And I'm gonna, once again, try the different lights. See if we have one that makes the issues a little bit more obvious. Okay, that looks like it may even be a nail from nailing up the trim. And look, we have one there too. So the painters should have sunk that better if those are nails, or the original carpenter, I don't know. But that shouldn't be your responsibility as a buyer. They should be fixing that. Over here you can see more rough spots. And there, with this lighting, that's very obvious. So just keep your eye on that for a moment. We zoom back here. We are, 4 or 5 feet away. It's still very noticeable. And then we actually have an issue with this door frame where there are plenty of rough spots that the painter just painted over. It's as if they didn't sand the trim before they painted it. And sorry, that's something that we expect. This is ridiculous there. We expect builders to provide a higher quality finish than that. There you see another, remember the technical term for that, that's goober. Yeah, another goober, which might have just been a piece of lint on the brush or the roller. All right, looking here, we found something else that's just really not appropriate. If you can look here, even with this standard lighting, that paint color is the primer. and that is the finished color. So there's actually a little different. The finished color has a little bit of a yellowish tint to it. But here the painter did not even remove the switch plate cover when they were painting. That's totally unacceptable. That's, you know, when I used to have rental properties, we were painting rental properties, that's something even I avoided rental properties, because in my youth I saw people doing this in terms of how their paint quality was, the low quality of painting. And sure, a crew could paint an apartment in about 90 minutes, or less actually, depending on the size of the crew, but they would just paint right over the switches and outlets and such. This is effectively a luxury bathroom. The standards have to be a lot higher. They should have never painted over an actual switch plate. Okay, here we have some other things up there. Gosh, you can see that with this particular lighting. Now, just for fun, I'm going to turn the light out here. Yeah, with natural lighting, you can still see it. It doesn't quite pop out at you as much. But then here we actually have a nail pop. So this is, you know, brand new construction. This bathroom has never been lived in. That, you know, drywall, it was put up, finished, gosh, a week ago or something. Then there's a primer coat. I don't know why we still have a nail pop there, but that's not acceptable. Another goober there. Up here on the ceiling, there's just another goober that's there, you see. Now down here under the marble sill in the window, you can see right there. And then there's just a divot. This particular divot just really shows up. And, you know, in other parts of the room, there are probably hundreds of those about that size, but when the light doesn't point them out, you know, it's usually not a big deal. Here, that one's very visible. Down here, we have some goobers. Once again, not appropriate. Just sloppiness there. This is another area where somehow some dust got in the paint, or the painter just didn't brush the dust off, because the whole area there. And if you imagine the feel for having your arm or something rub up against that, you should never have that on a painted surface. It should always be relatively smooth like that, never a rough surface like that. Okay, so let's walk around here a little bit more, see what we have. We have a kind of an interesting issue up here. Right there is a pretty substantial divot, but with this particular set of lights on, it's not really visible. Let's see if we can try one of the other ones. No, not as visible there. Just going to go for some natural light here real quick and see what that does for us. Now, hey, we can pick that out from, you know, 5-6 feet away. So I wasn't seeing that before with the overhead lights, but now it's very clearly visible. So this to me is a great illustration of the whole challenge with lighting, because that to me is quite visible right now. All right, over here in the corner, yeah, I can see it from here, right up there. Try zooming in a little bit. Yeah, so you can see that. This one is not as visible with the current light, but we have a goober up here that's more visible. And over there, we have an issue right there that's visible, even in this natural light. All right, now we're getting close to the window, so we can, we're now, 5 feet away, maybe 4 or 5 feet away. So that spot's almost invisible, but at the right angle, with the right lighting, yeah, this is getting more invisible. Okay. Let's go back and put the overhead lights on and see what we see. Yeah, see, it's kind of visible there too. All right, and then up here, and this is one of those situations where if you walk in with the overhead lights on, it's very difficult to see issues on the ceiling, but we have a goober there. Over here, where our heat lamps are, there was a patch that just is not at all smooth, and depending on where the light is coming from, that is visible on 6 feet away. You can see that, and depending on the angle, this portion here, yeah, you can see some of that there. So they started to patch here and didn't complete that patch. Over here, just a goober. All right, so we mostly have goobers over here on the ceiling. And then over on this side, this, wow, that's kind of hard to see. There we go. So, imperfection there, a goober. And then over here, just a couple of really noticeable bad spots. And that's the idea. So you're looking at what essentially, oh, actually we have one other. This is a little bit challenging, but we talked initially about how this is the gloss paint, and you see with this light, there's a definite shine there, and that's the more flat or sand finish. Now, as we kind of come around this corner, let's see if we can find it. So typically the painter will paint this and that side with the gloss or semi-gloss, and then this should all be the flat. Yeah, it's not showing up as well with the lighting right now, but this area right in here on the wall actually has some of the semi-gloss paint on it. I'm going to try different lighting. Yeah, that's not really showing it up. Like, oh, there you can kind of see a little bit. We have the shining right there. You can kind of see it right there, how that's shiny, and this where my fingers are is not. So the painter actually put gloss paint on the wall right there. And like I say, that's something that's more visible in some other lighting conditions. So, all right, so that is kind of a critical look at paint and paint finishes in new construction, and what you know, and your buyer's agent and your inspector, you guys need to point this out. You also need to negotiate with the builder to make sure those types of defects are corrected.